I thought about it afterwards and I thought how amazing that these people probably came and ate in my restaurant many times and at the Hilton and Urban and Mayfair. And it's kind of nice now, maybe I can feed them, in their last few years in aged care and make a difference.
This is the Deep in the Weeds podcast. I'm Anthony Huckstep. The pandemic has changed us all. Some who have spent a lifetime carving out careers have had new realizations, taken the plunge, and taken on new challenges. More meaningful and purposeful challenges, not just for a better life for themselves, but for fellow human beings too. Bethany Finn is the chef in residence at aged care facility Lifecare. Bethany, how are you going?
Hello, I'm well. Thank you. Thank you for bringing me onto this.
Well, it's good to talk to you. You've had a pretty big life change just recently. You've spent 7 years building the Mayfair from scratch, handpicking your team, but the pandemic changed everything and you've gone in a different direction with Lifecare. Can you tell us about that decision to move into such a different direction?
Yeah, it wasn't an easy decision. I suppose my career has evolved to come to that decision in the end. But, I've just absolutely loved Mayfair, and because it was from scratch, designing the kitchen and handpicking the team and creating a concept for the restaurant and putting the whole thing together was very personal, and it was a combination of everything I've learned in my career from restaurants and hotels and travel, and it just sort of all came together beautifully for a boutique hotel. So it wasn't really just a hotel formula. It had to have a bit of a restaurant element and understanding. And being that I'm an Adelaide girl, I pretty well understood the market. And to my advantage, it sort of landed really well, and it was up and running reasonably quickly. Although you don't sleep or eat properly for the first 6 months of opening a hotel, it's hard work. But it was particularly sad to say goodbye to what I had achieved. But obviously, the pandemic really did push that along.
You've made a real name for yourself, not just in Adelaide and South Australia, but right across Australia. But you've always stayed in South Australia and had many successes there. Tell us about Adelaide food and your history there. You've had a strong history with the Hilton Group as well.
Yeah, look, I've been really, really fortunate to be able to stay in Adelaide with my family and my friends, and I didn't really have to go to the eastern states to succeed, although, I've had 3 fantastic bites of the cherry in Adelaide, and that sort of started out with a name like Bethany. It was named after a winery in the Barossa Valley, so it was inevitable I was going to stay in Adelaide at some stage. And, from there, I did travel to London in the 80s and work there, but I worked for an entrepreneur called Bill Sparr, who's no longer with us these days, but he was very much in the forefront, and working for him was a great education. He even brought out Michael and Albert Roux in the 80s and their young son, who's now all grown up, and we took them water skiing one weekend, so they were sort of like friends. They were just amazing people. So I decided I thought I'd go to London, and that's actually where I fell in love with food, to be honest, because the little boutique hotel I worked at had their own 3 full-time gardeners. It was set on an 18-hole golf course. It was just idyllic, and they grew mulberries and beautiful different heritage tomatoes, and the potatoes tasted differently, and the onions were sweet, and the Welsh lamb was beautiful, and I actually fell in love with food. But then you just don't realise how far advanced Australia is, and so picking fresh herbs, they never even thought to do that. So I think I learnt a lot from them, and they learnt a lot from me. So when I came back to and I was only there for a couple of years. When I came back to Adelaide, I joined Hilton, and being it was in its day brand new, first big hotel in Adelaide. It was very intimidating and it was very Germanic. And I just sort of ducked for cover and just learnt to survive for a few years. And I learnt a lot from all the German systems, to be honest. They're very good operators, but it was never really food focused. And so as time went on, I sort of worked my way up the ladder and became executive chef, and I was like the first girl, so it was quite intimidating. Some of the older men were a bit miffed because they were in line for the position, but I was the young one that got promoted. So not only did I have to cook well, I had to manage a team of people and try and create revenue for spaces. And then the Grange restaurant itself was it was struggling, and it didn't really have a true identity. And a few smart heads, we all got together and decided that we'd employ Chong Lu and put him in there, and he would bring the crowd and the media. And so that all happened in that time, and brought Simon Bryant in, who's done extremely well as part of the team. So I handpicked some pretty clever people over the years.
What was that period like with such amazing people in the kitchen and that celebration of that restaurant?
It was a roller coaster ride because it doesn't come out of a book, and it's not a set formula. It's created, and many a night we'd sit and have a glass of champagne or two, and it was very left field, and we come up with some unbelievable ideas. And for Chong to win best restaurant in Australia for Gourmet Traveller back in those years was just an amazing achievement, and it was wonderful to work with such a clever and very humble person as well. So that was the Hilton, and I was there for 15 years. It's hard to believe. I didn't stop learning, and it was a very respectful environment. And in those years, hotels used to make a lot of money. But as times have moved on and things have changed, and in recent times, that's certainly not the case. Everything's gone a little bit sideways because of COVID, and here we are now.
Well, we'll get to the changes that you've had because of COVID, but tell us a little bit about Mayfair and what you created there. What was the sort of, and your food, what food were you cooking there?
Well, 7 years ago, the Mayfair, it had to have some kind of identity. I just got given a whole heap of A3 plans, and they said, the restaurant's stuck me in a project office and said, the restaurant's in the basement. Here you go, see what you can come up with. And I sat in the Rundle Mall and looked up at this beautiful building. It looks like a building out of Fifth Avenue. It's just gorgeous, and it's very classic. And I thought, well, I can't sort of do Spanish because I'm not Spanish, and it's not going to be an Italian restaurant. And oh gosh, I don't think I put seafood in a basement. What's going to survive in a hotel in a basement in Adelaide? And I was thinking, oh no, it's never going to work. But I just had to come up with a formula that was appealing to the international traveller, but also has to appeal to the local market. And so I decided to go classic, and that was really, and everybody was doing modern. Everyone's, doing smears and tweezers and fiddly, and that's just not going to survive. And so I was quite bravely decided to do the classic and do prawn cocktails and beef Wellingtons and whole flounder, and use all those lovely, Escoffier would have been so proud. It was so much fun, and it was absolutely liberating. And, the dessert trolley and the shoe swans, we really put something quite spectacular together, and it just took off. It was amazing. And just getting the trolleys, when you think of a food trolley, you think, oh, yuck, it's something out of a supermarket. But it was refurbished, and this beautiful silver roll-top carving trolley that I picked up 5 trolleys, and I've got them from next to nothing and just had them refurbished, and they look like $1 million. And so putting a dessert trolley together with vintage glassware and just with all the classics, like chocolate mousse and creme caramel and creme brulee, and all those sorts of things were just a celebration of everything I'd learnt as an apprentice, and really just sort of gave it a little bit of a modern touch just to bring it up to date. But that's where Mayfair ended up, and so we were quite unique, and it's a fantastic formula for a hotel because people can just relate to the food, and you're really just celebrating great local produce without having to do an awful lot to it. And especially with your labour cost and everything, it was a smart way to go. It was a really efficient and very successful formula.
With restaurants locked down and international travel stopped and even interstate travel stopped, what sort of impact did that have on something like a boutique hotel with the Mayfair?
It was pretty scary, to be honest. In the first few weeks, all the functions were cancelling. You had $45,000 in functions cancel in one day, and we were battening down the hatches. I was cancelling food orders, turning off fridges, cleaning everything down, scaling it all down, wrapping things up, freezing it, just getting ready to shut it down. And we had about a 2-week lead in. You could see that it was sliding. And then, you can't serve a breakfast buffet because you can't have buffets. And so really the whole formula that was set up for the whole, there's 6 different menus that run out of one kitchen. The whole thing had to change and pretty much stopped overnight. Everybody was either made redundant or got stood down. And the 3 of us, myself, my sous chef Hayley and Nelia, we all stayed. The 3 of us ran the operation, breakfast, lunch and dinner 7 days a week. And best weight loss program ever. I've never worked so hard. It was crazy. But, there was only very, very low occupancy, only a handful of rooms that were people on isolation packages. And so, the hygiene side of things really kicked in. We had masks but it was quite odd coming into the city where the Mayfair Hotel is located on the corner of Hindley Street and King William. And Hindley Street is the party precinct. And to see that, really, it was a ghost town. To see that completely empty and silent was a very strange feeling. But the most difficult part was not being able to tell the staff, I'll just, sit tight, we'll look after you, we'll be back soon, you're still valuable, we care about you. You couldn't even, there's no message, it just went quiet. Nobody could tell us because nobody knew what was going to happen and no one knew the answer because it was all new. So, it's terrible because a lot of them were on visas and not Australian residents, so financially they just didn't even have money to buy food. So really it was a case of keeping in contact. So I'd send a message twice a week just to really keep an eye on mental health and just let people know that, we'll get back to you as soon as possible. I didn't have that conversation with management. I didn't know myself what I felt for them. So I felt terrible in that, my responsibility was to look after them and I couldn't. So that was quite difficult, but we did stay in contact, and as restrictions eased and South Australia moved forward reasonably quickly in the scheme of some states, we were able to bring people back and on JobKeeper, on limited hours, and start bringing people back in bit by bit. But it's just, I suppose it turned the nature of the business, the structure of how it all ran upside down on its head, and it's just become a mess. And really the whole formula has to be tidied up again. It just became difficult. And I thought, well, I've had this fantastic opportunity to set it up and get it right, and I've done all this work and now it's not working. And I thought, well, do I really want to do this all again? And I thought, well, maybe for the first time in my whole life I've had quite a few months off or just on limited hours with JobKeeper and trying to run, such a busy operation on 12 hours a week on JobKeeper. I just, it was just out of control. I just thought, well, this time I'm having off is actually the most time I've ever had off in my whole career. And I was starting to think I kind of like working this 2 days a week thing, although I'm broke, but I still eat well. And I think everyone at Dan Murphy's knew me by name. So yes, yeah, the opportunity, it came up, and as I saw the news every night, which I wasn't used to watching, the stories of coming out of Victoria with the aged care sector, it was just so brutal. And my mother-in-law had just gone into aged care, and it's a fantastic home. It really is just amazing, and the food's pretty good. And I just thought, well, they're so quick to brush everyone with the same formula that aged care is bad. But it's just like there are good restaurants and bad restaurants. There are great providers, and there's ones that need to be up to standard. And I just thought I could make a difference here. So that's sort of where my thought process was. And I wasn't actually looking to get out of hotel, restaurant, the competitive sector and fly into compliance sector. It was just came that way. A friend of mine mentioned it, and it was just an opportunity to sort of move into aged care.
You've been in the role for a little bit now. How different is it to working in hotel restaurants?
Yes, well, I sort of joked about it to start with and said, I've come from competitive to compliant, but I'm creative, and that the compliance doesn't need to overshadow the creative side. And if you really truly enjoy what you do, it's not about opening packets, it's about cooking with love. And at the end of the day, I still love cooking, and I enjoy working in teams of people and creating and building their strength. And given the opportunity that Lifecare invests into skills, and they're not just employing cooks, they're actually going to invest into chefs, that skill is transferable, and it is possible to move the quality of food just up the rung and make it. It has to be nutritional, and it has to be presented beautifully, and it needs to be enjoyable, because that's the meal. That meal is what they look forward to every day. That's the highlight of their day. So for me to be able to, offer that and give back, I couldn't think of anything better. And I thought about it afterwards, and I thought how amazing that these people probably came and ate in my restaurant many times, and at the Hilton and Urban and Mayfair. And it's kind of nice now, maybe I can feed them, in their last few years in aged care and make a difference. So for all the right reasons, my sort of career evolved that way without me even planning it. It just sort of came up. So I'm in aged care. Who would have ever believed that I would have gone and done that? But, I was just looking at doing a red velvet pudding with a cream cheese dressing. I was thinking, yum.
Wow.
I think I might try it out at home tonight first.
What's some of the challenges involved in creating a menu for the aged care facilities compared to restaurants? Because you're probably targeting nutrition more, and your budget may be different as well. Is there some challenges involved?
Sure. Maggie Beer has actually put a lot of work into aged care, which has been great, and being able to increase the spend, so we can purchase very good quality ingredients, so that obviously translates obviously for nutrition as well. Every menu that is written is approved by a dietitian to ensure that every resident gets well fed, and all their nutritional requirements are taken care of. So it's not just sort of what you feel like cooking. It's really well mapped out, really well planned, and they buy good quality ingredients. And so you might have the opportunity to, they absolutely love lamb shanks. You can spend a lot of time braising good quality ingredients as well. And they have state-of-the-art kitchens, so there's none of this sitting on a milk crate at lunchtime for your break, which I will miss. And they do things really well, and I'm actually really impressed by the actual care and the culture. And at my interview, and I haven't been for an interview for years, because you sort of go from one job and someone sees that they offer you another job, and it just sort of evolves that way. This time I actually went for an interview and I didn't have a clue on what to say. I felt like I was a teenager again. And I think the big thing was, if you're going to make a difference in aged care, you need to employ like-minded people to create a culture. So at the end of the day, you've got to get the right people, and they're prepared to invest into skills. And so we can, make a big change. And I will, I love a good challenge. Hilton was a massive challenge at 28, being executive chef and putting my own restaurant together and surviving 12 years at Urban, and then putting Mayfair together from scratch. I've been here at Lifecare for 3 weeks, and I can see where I'm going to make those changes and invest a lot of time and get in there at grassroots and actually cook with everybody, and just until we get all up to speed. There's 5 different kitchens across the Adelaide's metropolitan area, so I'll just focus on one, do that really, really well, make that a template, and then we'll transfer that knowledge and skills to the other sites as well. So that should keep me out of trouble for a while, I would think.
What's the expectation like on yourself? You're an award-winning chef. Will there be dishes or versions of dishes that you've heroed in the past on menus? Or take us through what we might see on menus.
They're definitely keeping the quality of the ingredients there. You have to take into account the people are really the oldest of the baby boomers are now moving into aged care, and at the end of the day, they don't want a glass of sherry with their dinner. They want a really nice glass of wine, and they probably would like some, a lovely white napkin, some beautiful linen on the table, and the glassware is elegant as well. So really their expectations is only going to grow, and to be able to serve garlic prawns, but just done beautifully and simply, but with flavour. I have to tell you this absolutely wonderful story. On my first day with Lifecare, I was walking down the hallway and an older gentleman came walking towards me, and it was my chef. It was my chef and my mentor from Regency Park College who helped me become a chef and got my foot in the door at Regency Park College. And being the only girl in the whole college, he was a wonderful support, Mr. Brian Laws. And as he walked past me in the hallway, I went, "Chef, it's you, Chef." And the smile on his face was just golden. It was just, he's such a sweet man. He supported me at the Hilton and ate there when I was chef. And then when I opened my own restaurant, which I had for 12 years, he came and ate at Urban. Then at the Mayfair, he came and had a few meals there. He was just getting a little bit older then. And I had this wonderful picture of him blowing out a candle for a birthday. And I printed it off and I've sent it to him. And so now he's in now he completes the whole circle. He supported me throughout my whole career, and now I get to feed him. So I think he might want a beef Wellington and a creme brulee. He's not going to want to eat anything else other than the best.
How are you feeling about the restaurant industry moving forward, given what's just happened? You've sort of moved to the left of the industry, but you're still cooking. What does the hospitality landscape look like for you?
Yeah, the hospitality landscape, it has changed. Adelaide's moving forward quite quickly now, and there's a lot of people out and about, and the sun's shining. We're now in October, and it's safe and healthy, and people are going out, and everyone's still very careful though, which is wonderful. The restaurant trade has picked up, and I think we've lost a few along the way, which is sad to hear, and some wonderful places as well. I just, it's like, hotels are regulated. I just wonder whether you can do the same for restaurants. I mean, it's a hard game. You're lucky if you make 5 cents in the dollar. Really, do we really need that many restaurants? The best restaurants should thrive and do well and be successful and buy new crockery and pay their staff really well. And if that was more controlled and we didn't have thousands and thousands of restaurants in all, just it's buying a job, it's not really running a business. A business needs to make money so you can invest back into it, whether it be the staff or the quality of, the refurbishment, whatever. It just would be much more controlled or regulated, would make a bigger difference. The hard thing, it is a hard thing because there are a lot of people who are very keen to get in. It's a hard decision, and it's a big sacrifice on your family. And there are ones that do extremely well, but if it's not profitable, it's not worth doing, and that's the hard facts, unfortunately.
You've made a huge decision to leave the industry in a way. Has this time changed you as a person as well?
Oh, it has changed me. I actually see the sun go down at night, and I get excited about seeing a sunset, which is crazy after all these years. I probably a bit more reflective. Looking back, I've absolutely loved everything I've done, and I now have more time to probably make a bigger difference in a different way. I think I'm probably more sad that I leave behind a beautiful team of chefs at the Mayfair. I'm sad because I miss them, because they'll just, chefs talk chef language, and it's not quite the same when you're in an office to start with. But I'll be out of this office very soon. I've just got my feet on the ground and got myself organised, and I can get back out there. It has changed my outlook. It's a different culture. It's very respectful. I'm really surprised I didn't get in and see what was going on in aged care sooner, because I could have made a difference a long time ago, I think. But, part of, my career has evolved to this stage. So I probably, everything I've learnt along the way is transferable. And some of those wonderful dishes can, now be celebrated with, the people that have supported me. So as a person, I think I'm more well-rounded. I'm much more tolerant. I have a better understanding of business. And I think every experience has been an education, and I've learnt from it, which is, I'm very, very fortunate to have been able to do that and stay here in a state that I absolutely love and adore.
What are you loving about the new role, and what do you hope to bring to the aged care sector that perhaps is missing?
Oh, the aged care sector, it has so much compliance for the health, wealth, and the safety of the residents, and that in itself is massive, and it's big, and it's hard to get your head around just how much needs to go into that. And behind the scenes, people probably don't realise just how clever they are to what they create. But the bit that's missing is the creativity, because you get so bogged down in all the other stuff. I'm trying to put that to one side And that creativity needs to come out in just the way we do things. Like there's a bit of a challenge because some of the homes are quite well spread out, and so getting hot food a distance away is quite a challenge. And I just saw on Instagram the other night these fantastic, in the mug puddings, chocolate puddings and red velvet puddings. And I thought, oh, how cool's that? That's fun. We could do something like that. So you can actually bring some really modern ideas, and that is transferable, to be able to maybe change the way we do things. And the way they've always done it doesn't mean it can't, no doubt. I think those changes might be difficult, and people don't always like change because that's the way we've always done it. But that's kind of not the attitude when you're a chef. And if you want to move forward and make those changes, everyone needs to be on board. So, getting the right people, having everybody understand what it is we're going to achieve together, it should be exciting, and it should be a little bit liberating, really, because you can see new exciting things. And just my mum grows these violas. She's always grown and always given me packets of flowers to use for high tea, and love her to pieces. So she dropped off flowers and she said, oh, you won't be needing these anymore for the Mayfair. And I went, oh, no, I need more. I've got 5 sites now. You need to grow more. We'll put flowers on the scones. We'll have flowers on everything, We'll do high tea. We can have events. We can do what we did at the Mayfair. We can transfer fantastic ideas into aged care. So, we're not limited to just doing what we've always done before. And I just hope I can change that perception and attract people who are really passionate about cooking and who don't just go through the motions and who do care about what they do. And at the end of the day, homestyle cooking, is the cornerstone. And, Jamie Oliver does that so well. He is just so good at that. And the quality of the food that they can have is just only limited by the person who's creating it. So it just opens up a massive opportunity to make amazing, beautiful, fresh food every day. And put the compliance to one side. Yes, we'll do everything correctly, but focus on the bit that's important, and that's actually cooking it well, with lots of flavour and nutrition, and think about the presentation. And these kitchens are state of the art, so there's no excuse in my eyes.
Well, Bethany, there's going to be some very lucky, well-fed older people in Adelaide. It's pretty extraordinary. They're going to have a chef of your calibre creating a menu for them. We've loved hearing your story today. Thank you so much for joining us on Deep in the Weeds. Keep in touch, and we'll talk again soon.
I certainly will. Thank you so much. Cheers.
This is the Deep in the Weeds podcast. I'm Anthony Huckstep. Stay tuned as we share the stories of Australia's hospo community, suppliers and producers in search of hope during this pandemic. Special thanks to executive producer Rob Locke for making this all happen. Follow us on Instagram at Deep in the Weeds Podcast, or email us at podcast@deepintheweeds.com.au. Stay safe and be well.